Greetings, I'm Slice, and today I will be showcasing one of the best strength weapons in Elden Ring's DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. This weapon is called Anvil Hammer. It scales with strength, dexterity, intelligence, and faith. So for this build, I'm using the two-handed sword talisman, Shard of Alexander, Dragon Crest Great Shield, and the Erdtree's Favor +2. For this build to work correctly, you need the Shard of Alexander by completing Alexander's questline. I have a video on how to do that on my channel, so check it out if you would like to know how to do that, and the two-handed sword talisman, which is acquired in the DLC. So the armor set, you can use whatever you want. So this weapon goes up to B in +10 by using a Somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone to fully upgrade it. For my build, of course, I'm a high-level build. I recommend, if you're planning on playing the DLC, to be somewhere between level 150 and 185. 200 should be what you finish the game at, in my opinion. So, for this DLC, I have 60 Vigor, 35 Endurance and 35 Mind, 80 Strength, 15 Dexterity to be able to wield this weapon, and the rest is up to you. But I'm also using Faith to give myself a boost with Golden Vow. So, while one-handing this weapon, I'm dealing currently 2,101 damage with 20 Scattertree Blessing. While two-handing the weapon, I deal 2,189. And trust me, that's where it's important. That's what's important to point out, because I have a talisman that affects my damage while two-handing weapons. So this increases my damage by a hidden percentage of numbers there. So let's try it with just R1 attacks. So I'm going to be doing so at the final area of the game. So I'm going to start with R1 attacks. Two-handing. Always two-hand this weapon. There we go. It also deals fire damage, which is important to note, that some things might be resistant to fire. So that's the only downside to this weapon. Alright, so next up, I have the Shard of Alexander. This greatly boosts the attack power of skills, meaning your L2 or left trigger if you're using controller. There we go. Works best against a group of enemies, of course. Right, so now let's try the run and R1 attack. 3,100 damage. So how well does it fare against a boss? Or mini-boss? Very well, I would say. Alright, so let's try a series of attacks with R2. Attack with R2. The right trigger. As you can see there. Works best against a group of enemies like these, like this. And then follow up with the R1. That's why you need a lot of endurance with this build, because of things like that. This will deplete your endurance or stamina very, very quickly. So you need that sort of huge amount of stamina points. So this weapon also works very well in PvP, since you can probably tell I have this weapon has an L2 attack that is pretty much an area of attack. So these needles are raised up and they stay there for a while, so anyone that gets near you will take damage, as long as the needles are right there. So let's try the weapon with Golden Vow. So Golden Vow is a faith buff. You can use literally any talisman to cast Golden Vow. This will increase my damage by a lot. So while two-handing the weapon, I'm dealing 2,517 damage. This weapon also scales with faith, so having a good faith for this character will help a lot. I'm running and R2ing, 4,000 damage, 123. But how well does it fare against this boss? Let's see. Let's try it. I'm just pressing R1. And just with R1 attacks, I broke his poise. And I think that's what's important to note, because this weapon might not have the highest attack power, like something like the Ruin's Greatsword, but it does have a higher chance of staggering enemies. So that's why I put it up there for one of the best strength weapons in the DLC. Of course, you have to have a very high strength stat for this weapon to be really good. Once again, I recommend 60 vigor, 60 strength, or 80 if possible. And if you don't plan on using the L2, just put all of those levels into strength and endurance, and maybe consider putting some faith into it as well. This weapon will single-handedly carry you through the whole DLC. If you don't want to if you don't want to use the Ruin's Greatsword, but the Ruin's Greatsword is ultimately 10 times better. But I completely understand if people don't want to use it, but this is the ultimate best strength build in the game. Just as a heads up, if you're considering how to beat the DLC easily, I recommend you use the Ruin's Greatsword. It deals 2,223 damage, but the highlight of this weapon is the L2 attack. And there you go, that's easily one of the best things in the entire game. But if you just want to do a DLC build, of course, you can just choose to use whatever. But I recommend the Anvil Hammer if you're a strength build. Anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Of course, you can have your own opinions about this. So if you haven't tried it yet, check out the Anvil Hammer plus 10. You can acquire it very early on into the DLC. But it is a DLC weapon, and it will perform really well in the Lands Between as well. It deals around 1020 damage in the Lands Between, so that's really good. Jump attacks are not the best. I recommend you just stick to L1s and L2s, but that's pretty much it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.